author Joseph Conrad is said to have refreshed himself in its ample public houses on his voyage from life before the mast to the heart of darkness. It has rung to the strident tones of politics and religion, marked the coronations and deaths of monarchs, been a centre of commerce and conviviality, a public forum one day, a fairground the next. War almost did for it. Peace would prove no less transformative. Over the 250 years of its existence, the fortunes of South Shields' historic marketplace have fluctuated with those of the wider town. Both have had to adjust to social and economic change. Within the lifetime of many townsfolk, that has included the decline of the market itself. The rise of the discount retailer has seen a corresponding fall in the numbers of bargain hunters. Gone too is the tradition for Shields folk to put on their glad rags on a Saturday afternoon and go down street to stroll up one side of King Street to the market and down the other. For a post-war generation, this was the era of stalls piled high with crockery, pans and nylons to be sifted through to find a matching pair, of reconditioned boiler suits and other stalls selling goldfish and rabbits. In winter, the lamps would flare in the chilly dusk. By then, the market was no longer open until 10 o'clock at night, as it had been before the war, when, the later the hour, the more the cost of Sunday's joint fell. In those days, visitors would also have found Harry Randall's toffee stand, where homemade toffee with a free bag of horehound candy could be bought for sixpence. Also the stall piled high with assorted tripe, into which the stall holder would shove his hand shouting, "Come on, get amongst it!" And there was the painless dentist, who guaranteed to pull a tooth with his finger and thumb for a shilling. This was the market as part public service, part spectacle, like the stocks that a century earlier had once stood opposite St Hilda's church. Or the fairs that would visit in spring and autumn with their prancing horses and shuggy boat rides, or likewise the travelling menageries that would also descend at regular intervals. The Friday flea market has in recent years returned the square to aspects of what it was then, at least commercially, though the old clothes stalls are no longer confined to the side nearest the church. South Shields-born poet James Kirkup immortalised these in a poem.
The old jackets rub shoulders on the racks of life and death. The crumpled trousers all undone swing in a driving wind, a boneless abandon, soft shoes shuffle in the sands of time. Laid away, the painter's dungarees are dingy white, stained with forgotten schemes for houses decorated out of sight.
Gone, though, is the fresh fish market. Also the groups of men who, hands cupped around their woodbines or capstan full strength, would gather around the old town hall in the hope of being tapped for work on the river. An old Shieldsman, writing of his Victorian childhood, remembered each trade having its own beat, while the church side was common to most parties. Men milled in this way, albeit in ever-decreasing numbers, until as late as the 1960s, before the skyline increasingly ceased to be crisscrossed by cranes. The marketplace pulsed with life, not only in the numerous pubs, of which there were at least 6 before the First World War, and as many again in the surrounding streets, but also in the shops. Marks and Spencer started out in the town with a penny bazaar here. Barbers, with a shop on the west side of the square, specialised in weatherproof clothes that would evolve into the garb of aristocrats. Crofton's, the legendary department store on the corner of King Street, would survive one disastrous fire early in its existence, but not a second. That catastrophe was visited one autumn night in 1941, when the town suffered the biggest air raid of the war. In a matter of hours, 2 sides of the square had been reduced to smoking ruins. The then 170-year-old town hall miraculously stood firm, albeit not undamaged. The old cross, as it was affectionately known, was left looking out over a sea of devastation. Over the next 20 years, new buildings would grow up around it. There would be no attempt to reconstruct a square which had once been likened to the marketplace at Bruges. Post-war modernity won the day, in keeping with a town which, under borough engineer John Reid, was sweeping away much of its Victorian housing and redrawing its commercial heart. Concrete took the place of brick, with new pubs going up on the site of the old, and the building of a new tax office, Woodhalf House, with shops adjacent. Today the square continues to evolve. Words remain its currency, not those of the fairground barker or the radical anymore, but as the home of the town's main library, housed within an award-winning building dedicated to writing and creativity. The marketplace's own story, meanwhile, continues to unfold.